All right, so I was down at the ICE protest in Center City. I was in Center City, and I kind of just happened to walk through it. So I stopped and I talked to some of the protesters. I talked to about 7 or 8 people. They were all open borders, no border patrol, no border regulations at all. They were all open border. They were, at least the ones I talked to, they were all full-blown socialists, diehard socialists. Not only were they anti-border patrol or border enforcement, they were anti-police as well. So we talked about socialism, we talked about the Bible because they brought that up, and Islam. We talked about all these different things, and I really wish I would have recorded it. But now, what I was telling them the flaw of Marxism is, in the socialism basically, I said the flaw is that your ideology prevents you from seeing people as individuals. And of course they're arguing with me, no, or you were not, or whatever, but whenever I would challenge them about individual examples or circumstances, they would just say, oh, but that's just one person type of thing. And I'm like, yeah, it's just one person. But my point is, you can't put everyone in a particular category, black, poor, white, whatever. You can't lump everyone together. Everyone's individuals. Everyone has their own life. So the example I gave was, I said, look, I'm unemployed and I'm hungry. I haven't eaten all day. Right? So my whole point was, well, I'll get to that in a second. And as I was saying it, I said, I'm unemployed, I'm hungry, I haven't eaten all day. And the one guy says, that should be illegal. He literally says this. He says, that should be illegal. I said, why? He said, because it should be a crime for someone to be hungry in this country, all these people. I said, are you assuming? I said, hold on. I said, are you assuming that I left a house and I didn't have food? He's like, no, I'm not assuming that. I said, are you assuming that the building I just left didn't have someone that I could have asked to borrow a couple dollars? And everyone else is kind of silent. Excuse me. He's like, no, I'm not assuming that. I said, yes, you did. I said, because as soon as you heard that I was hungry and I was unemployed, you assumed somebody had done something to me to put me in that situation. So I said, this is a perfect example. I said, you can't look at everyone who's hungry or unemployed or homeless or whatever and assume that each one of them is in that position because of, oppression. And he would say like, well, that's you. Yeah. You know, when I was telling him my situation and how I played a role in it, he's like, well, that's you. That's different. That's you. But there are other people. I say, yes, there are other people. There are other people that are in terrible circumstances. They may have had things done to them, but there are other people who have their own flaws. They're self-destructive, or they don't have the aspiration they need. It's just, people are different. And they just kept saying, like, they just kept trying to deal with things on such a general scale. And I just kept telling them, I said, your ideology is preventing you from viewing any given person as an individual. Cops, rich people, black people, that ideology, like, it literally doesn't allow them to see that. So anyway, when I said I was hungry, here's the thing. You had all these people out there protesting. You had all of the people that I talked to, all were talking about the injustice of people starving and being homeless. When I said I was hungry and I didn't eat all day, how many of them you think actually offered me something to eat or drink, or tried to get me something to eat or drink? None of them. And that is the mentality of socialism. It's always someone else should do this. If you're going to be sitting out here preaching, and I don't say that in a bad way, but, you know, that's what they're doing, kind of. If you're going to be sitting out here preaching, it's an injustice for someone to be hungry. It's an injustice for someone to not have a job and not to be able to provide for themselves. And then you have someone right in front of you who literally says, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten all day. Now, I didn't say that to try to get anything. I was simply going to go into how I had put myself in that situation, simply by just leaving the house, rushing, really. But I put myself in that situation, but with them not knowing me, they would assume, because of their ideology, they would assume that something was done to me, like I had done it to myself. So that's why I was bringing it up. I didn't really want anything from them. But my whole point is, and I thought about it later, how can you preach about that? It's an injustice. people should help and community. They was big on community and community is going to love each other and all that. But not one of them offered me something to eat or something to drink. And I made a video, and in that video, I said it was like it was titled, Why People Think of Government When They Think of Charity. And it's because it's easy. It's you want someone else to do something. Just because someone feels strongly about something doesn't mean that they actually care about the person, right? You can be anti-capitalist, but not pro-poor. You know, people say the same thing about abortion. They'll say like, oh, you're just anti-abortion. You don't really care you're not pro-life. You're just anti-abortion for various reasons. And depending on what they say, I would disagree with them. But they're probably right. There are some people who don't care about people in general, but they don't like the idea of abortion. There are people like that. So then they talked about, they was like, we don't need the government. The government kills our people, bro. Right? He literally said that. The government kills our people. He's like, police kills our people, bro. We don't need the government. So I said, think about this. You got this Marxist, or you got this idea in your head that the black community is the way it is because of oppression, and violence and the problems we have is because of oppression. I said, if this is your view of the black community, if violence and stuff is because of the poor, the poverty and things like that, I said, what would happen if you took the cops out of the black community? And he was just silent. See, before he was saying, well, the community will police each other, but you got to use it. When people talk in generalizations like that, you have to use specifics. You have to challenge their line of thinking with specifics. You got to, that way they can see the implications of their ideas being implemented. Because when you continue to talk in general terms, you're stuck in idea land. People are stuck in idea land. Theoretically, that would work. That would make sense, assuming this and this and this. No, you have to put boots to the ground, metaphorically. You have to actually give real life scenarios. And it's ironic because that's what they do when they talk about, a single mother with 2 kids. She can't live off $10 an hour. They have no problem talking about individuals when it fits their narrative. But when it breaks their myth or it breaks their ideology or goes up against them, they don't like to talk about individualism. So I tried to explain to them. I said, if you remove the cops from the neighborhood, who's going to enforce the order? And they said the community. I said, you just created a police force. And they're like, no, but it's going to be everyone's. I said, well, so what about the people who won't submit to the rules of your community? The only way to get people to abide, people that have different backgrounds, different motives, different cultures, different religions, different whatever, you're just different people. I said, the only way you're going to get everyone on the same page is by force. No, bro, it don't have to be like that because they're living in fantasy land. I said, there's no place on this earth. There's no place on this earth where you have complete unity and equality like that because we're all just so different. We're so different culturally. God made us different, but then we're so different with our personal opinions and stuff. And then one of them said, let me get this trash can. So then one of them started saying like, yo, man, it's just whatever's good, whatever's, I said, well, who's going to make the laws? And it was just kind of like, whatever's good, man, we just go by what's good. And I said, who defines good? And it's like, and the one guy was on, he's like, I don't know. It's just, basically what he's saying is like, what's good. The same way we kind of would say, morality, like you have an innate sense. But my whole point is, they were, the ones I talked to, they were pretty anti-Bible, not in an evil way, but, to them, and one of them literally said, or one or two, there's a couple of them actually, they literally said, white Christianity, basically like white oppressive Christianity, which is why I keep telling Christians, you get involved with these social justice people, and when they have the mentality that when their goal for society is for everyone to be happy, then they're going to have a problem with your religion because it calls out specific actions and things, and it doesn't allow you to. It has a different standard than what their standard is. Their standard is happiness. Each person should be happy and feel safe. That's a fantasy. That's a fantasy. And so I would bring up things. I would say, well, when the guy was saying, well, what's good? I said, there are people that like to touch little kids and they think it's good. And like they always do, oh, you're twisted for thinking that way. I said, look, that's a perfect example because it's an extreme example and it directly challenges what you're trying to say. And they would say, but don't be so specific. Don't think so limited. I said, no, I'm just talking about the implications of your ideology. And they could not answer it. And they could not answer it because they're the social Marxism, I'm making up stuff, but the social Marxism idea, the idea that this earth can be a utopia is a complete fantasy. And we talked about human nature, and the one guy, he said, oh, here we're going to talk about human nature again. I said human nature is important. You cannot ignore the parts of human nature that are bad, or, I would say bad, like our propensity to be violent. And we went through the whole, Europeans stole this land and stuff. I said, how do you think the people that were here before Europeans got the land? Every continent that has people, anywhere that has a group of people where a distinction can be made between the two people, whether it's their skin color, whether it's what team, you got people that fight over different football teams. But you want to act like division only comes through white people. Come on now. So anyway, I'm rambling, but it was an interesting experience. I'm not going to be able to go there tomorrow, but I'm going to start going there, talking to them more, hopefully recording it, because I want people to understand that, these people, and I'm being very generic, but these people, just because they feel strongly as you, and just because they say the same things as you, generic terms like social justice, and equality, diversity, 10 people can say that and have 10 different ideas of what they genuinely mean in their heart on what that is. Now, I'm not saying that they'll be lying, but they'll just have a different interpretation of how to properly live that out. So you got to be careful who you align yourself with. You got to really talk to people and what kind of movements you get to. Nothing wrong with being supportive and encouraging people, but when it comes to movements and things like that, you have to really know what they stand for and not just going by their official mission statement or what other people tell you they're about. You have to talk to the people themselves. And then I got now, the other thing is I want people to understand what I want Christians who are into social justice, what I want you to understand is that a lot of the people who you are going to be fighting with or advocating with in terms of social justice, you have to be careful because a lot of them are simply just appealing to their feelings and what they feel is right or wrong. And when your belief system rubs up against them the wrong way, then you will become their enemy. Not only that, the idea that, my mind just went blank. Not only that, when they think of happiness and their goal is happiness, their goal is not a specific wage or a specific nothing. Their goal is everyone should feel happy and enjoy life. So by default, when your beliefs or when your religion or whatever bumps up against that, you're going to be viewed as the problem. You're going to be viewed as the intolerant person as part of the problem. I mean, I got the whole Jesus was made up and the religion was made up to control us. They were all saying that stuff. They were all there saying that stuff. And when I talk to them, I'm like, look, you may have two people with totally different views. I said, you may be an anarchist and then somebody else may believe in Sharia law. What are you going to do? How can you, and they're like, well, you'll come to an agreement. I said, look, you don't understand. Sharia law is the idea of a person submitting to God. So a person who genuinely believes that, they're not going to compromise because you feel uncomfortable. And they should not compromise because you feel uncomfortable. That's disgusting. That's like idolatry. So I'm trying to tell them, I said, if you have people in your neighborhood who believe in Sharia law, you have people in your neighborhood who are pedophiles and who think that it should be okay. You have people in the neighborhood that feel as though they should be able to do whatever they want and you should mind your business. I said, the only way you're going to get the society that you believe that you want is by force. The only way you're going to get people to conform to that is by force, because they're too different. And they didn't want to see that. Because they're not thinking about the implications of what they're saying, and they're not looking at human nature. They're ignoring human nature, and they're ignoring individuals, the ideas that individuals make particular choices. They have this idea in their mind that the only reason why people do something bad is because they were in that situation. And one of them actually said that, which is what led me to bring up the whole thing about me being unemployed and hungry. And I told him, I said, look, you can't assume that because somebody does something bad. He said something about stealing. He said, well, if someone's stealing, then what put them in a position to where they have to steal? And I said, why are you assuming that people have to steal? There are people who feel as though they have to steal because they have nothing. But then there are people who steal simply because they like stealing. I gave him the example. I said, you and I can both be very hungry. I said, you and I can both be very hungry. We both can go down the street and break into a house right next to each other. You can break in and eat someone's food. I can break in someone's house and eat someone's food. And we can have two totally different motives for doing so, even though we both are hungry. I could be doing it because I'm simply jealous of the guy who has food and I don't like him. So I'm fulfilling my need for hunger, but there's something else there driving me. And it was just kind of like, silent. Like they got silent. And, it's like you can't argue with that. You can't argue with that. And that's the problem. People, when it comes to ascribing evil motives to certain people, aka rich people, white people, whatever, people are okay with that. But when it comes to blacks, minorities, poor people, gay people, whatever, they won't be so willing to ascribe negative intentions to them. They're like way more likely to ascribe positive intentions to that person. And it's like, it's not equal. It's like each person is an individual. I try to explain to them the danger of viewing people that way. One, because when you continually see someone as a victim, you have to look for the oppressor. If someone's oppressed, you have to find the oppressor. And if there is no oppressor, but you believe there is one, then you are just one step closer to enacting an injustice against someone who you falsely believe to be an oppressor. You're that much closer to being the injustice that you complain about. And I talk with all kind of people, and it's weird because when I bring up Sharia law and that sort of thing, a couple people first they said was, oh, but Christianity's bad or Christianity's fake. And I'm like, it's a red herring. That has nothing to do with it. If you want to, we're talking about Islam and how Sharia law can be implemented into this utopia that you believe that humans can live in. And they wouldn't, it was just like, well, some people don't believe in Islam that way. And, someone says Sharia law is just simply living a certain way. And that is so disrespectful to Muslims. That is disrespectful to Muslims to minimize their belief system like that. But that's what they do. Because their theology, or their not their theology, their ideology prevents them from looking at people as individuals and being able to point out bad actors. The only time they can do that is when they're talking about potential oppressors, which is ironic because once you're viewed as a victim in Marxism, they will never look at you as possibly being an oppressor, which is why the whole victim mentality is dangerous. If you're an oppressed person, they will assume that anything you do is because you're oppressed and you're only trying to help yourself because you're oppressed. Basically, as if you have no choice. That is terribly dangerous. And I was thinking tomorrow of going around to all of those protesters and saying, I don't have any money. Can I have some money? Just to prove a point. To prove 2 points. One, to see if their money is where their mouth is at. You want to spend people money and you want the government to do this or to do that. Are you going to contribute to somebody who's claiming that they're oppressed or claiming that they're in need? Then the other thing is, if they're dumb, I can walk away with a good amount of money. That might be my job while they're down there protesting. Either way, it would force them to look at that it would force them to look at me as an individual and to look at their ideology. And there's going to be some cognitive dissonance there. So next time I'm down there, what I'm going to ask them, and the conversations were pretty cool. It was no one arguing. No one, at least I didn't get offended. One guy got pretty triggered, but they were pretty cool conversations. But I'm going to ask them. They want open borders. They think anyone, they literally said anyone should have the right to live here and live the American dream. I said, based on what? Because everyone should have essential needs. I said, if a person's coming from another country, they live in a totally different country, and their needs are not being met in that country, who's responsible? They're like, well, that country. But no. How you want to yell at America? How you going to yell at America for an injustice that another country is doing? The other country, it's like some other parents. That's like my neighbor's not taking care of that's like, let's say my neighbor doesn't take care of their kids, and I take care of my kids. And you come over to me and be like, how dare you not take care of your neighbor's kids? But you don't say nothing to your neighbor. Like, or you blame me, or he's not taking care of his kids because, you're oppressing him. Come on, dog, really? That's exactly what the mindset is when people demand to come into our country, and other people demand their right to come into this country any way that they see fit, knowing that they're coming from a place where they believe that this person was being oppressed in that country. They never deal with the other country. They always deal with America. What a joke. So that's the end of me ranting and raving. There were some really good conversations. I'm going to try to record some. I did record about 5 minutes, but then the guy said I don't feel comfortable being recorded. So I apologize and I stopped recording. But I don't know. I don't say stuff. I don't just say stuff just to say it, just to try to sound smart, just to try to antagonize people or whatever. The ideas that you have going along in your head, the rubber has to meet the road somewhere. You have to be able to look at situations, real life situations, and how if your way that life should be lived, how it matches up to real life situations. You can't just say the community will come together. There will be no oppression because the police are gone. But you have people in the community who are basically going to be elevated to the position of enforcers. Because somebody has to enforce it. Like, think about what you're saying. It makes no sense whatsoever. All right, so be on the lookout for more videos and hopefully some actual footage of me talking to people down there at this ICE thing in Philly, this ICE protest in Philly. Please, like, subscribe, and share if you found this useful.